All right, we're back again with another episode of Charticulator. This Charticulator, oh, I guess I should do the intro. Hey gang, it's Mike from Power BI Tips. We're gonna dive back into Charticulator again. This time we're hitting a global chart, or it's a global trade chart made by Microsoft, and we're gonna tackle it and see what we can build. This is what we made in episode 7. So if you want to check that out, go watch out the previous episode where we build this data chart from Jeff Weir out of New Zealand. All right, let's get going. Okay, so I have done a little bit of playing with this one. I've worked a little bit ahead of time to make sure that this one worked out okay. I've had some problems with this in the past, wasn't quite sure how to get it working, so this one requires a lot of technique, I guess I would say, to get this one working correctly. So I hope I do this one right. We're going to try it. We're just going to see how it goes, and hopefully we can get this chart to work. Okay, so this one, we're going to actually need 2 tables of data. So I'm going to turn on the Charticulator chart here initially, and when I move it over here to the right-hand side, I'm going to point out some stuff. Let's get the zoom it here. Zoom it. Get zoom it working. And then you'll notice here there are 2 data areas. Data, oops, let's go with the other one. Data and links. So today we're going to work on using data properties in the linking. And the linking allows you to take data points and connect them together. So basically 2 different tables. However, when Power BI requires you to bring data into a data model, it does require you to have a relationship between those data points. And let's talk about that. The 2 tables that we're going to be using today will be using global links here at the top, and then global trade here down below. The global trade table basically has a bunch of IDs, names of countries and regions, and then shows their total export or imports based on that region. The linking file has an amount. It has the region, where the region, like a higher level category, that has the source ID and target ID. In order for this to work, we do need a relationship between the 2 tables. So here's what the 2 tables relationship looks like. And actually, I'll highlight the relationship here as well when we zoom in. So I have the ID linking from global trade table, which is kind of like a dimension here because it's actually a one-to-many. And then the global links where source ID is repeated multiple times. So it's doing one-to-many from global trade table to global links. So that's how I'm building the relationship here. Let's first put some data tables. So I wanted to show you that just to get your familiarity with the data that we're going to be using. So now I'm going to put some data in some tables so we can quickly see what's going on here. So let's start with the global trade, and we're going to start with the ID because we won't have every single country listed. We want the name of the country, the region, and then the total value. So this is ID, name, region, and total. We're going to put this guy up here. Then we're going to need another data chart for the other table. And for this visual, we're going to bring in the region. We're going to use the source ID, target ID, and the amount. So we have 2 IDs. So you can see that the source ID here matches the source ID up there. And we can link those 2 items together. And then you have a target, so source and target for the trading values. Okay. Now that that's done, now that we can see the data here, and I'll zoom in real quick here so we can see this. This is the ID column that we're using. And we've joined that column with the source ID column. So those 2 columns are linking together. All right, next, we're going to go into Charticulator. We're going to open this big so we can kind of see what's going on here. Click on the ellipsis under More Options. And then we're going to go into the first option there called Edit. All right, here's where the fun begins. We need to add some columns to this. So in the data well, I'm going to bring the ID. I'm going to bring the name, the region, and the total value. Those are all the columns that we'll bring in there. In the links area, we're going to bring in region, amount will be there, and we need the source ID and the target ID. Now, I'm not exactly sure how all of this is working, so maybe I can get someone from Microsoft on the phone with us at some point to talk through, like, how does the data and the links thing work together. But for my testing, this seems to work. where I have the ID linking to the source ID, and then you need source and target to have Charticulator understand what's going on. So my understanding is it's using the ID column and the undername underscore source underscore ID. I think it's something with the name itself. The fact that it's ID up here and then it's ID down here, and then you have source underscore and then target underscore. I think there's some coding happening that's allowing this to work properly, because that's what you need. ID from one table and then source and target in the links table, providing the linkage between the two data points. I think that's what's happening, but I can't be 100% certain. I'll have to talk to Microsoft a bit more about that one. Okay, so we're actually going to build this chord diagram. This template over here in the far right hand side, this is actually what we're going to build. So we're going to create this chart. We're going to hit create chart. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check a look at my plot area. Okay, so we got plot area by stack on the X. This seems fine. Let's add a mark to this. So I'm going to grab a mark and add it to the glyph area. Okay, I get a bunch of bars. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add the region to this, because we're going to change all of the colors by region. So I'm going to go down here to the fill for the shape, grab region and add it over here on the region area. And so there we got a nice color spectrum of all of our different countries. There are multiple countries in a region, and that's why those are multiple bars of the same color. Let's minimize these two field wells over here. Let's get rid of the visualizations and the fields pane. And then now we can look a little bit more centric on just what Charticulator is drawing. The next thing we want to do is we want to adjust how wide the bar is. So the amount of total trade coming out of a country is the total value from the main fields area. So I'm going to go zoom in here to the bottom edge of this, and I'm going to take the total column and add it to the width. So this then draws the different widths of bars for each country. Now, this is not a ring chart, and actually someone in the comments, I think on episode 5, said, hey, can we have like a ring chart, something with a ring chart? So we're going to do that now. We're actually going to produce a ring chart. So we're going to go to the scaffolds, click on the polar plotting system, and then we're going to click and drag that into the chart area. And this will then make a ring. So now we have all of the plotted segments now as radiuses around a donut chart. Let's click on the donut chart, and then we can then adjust this middle line and zoom it out so it's very wide here, so we can see on the very outside edge. So now we got this rings. It's a thinner ring now. Okay, here's where the magic happens. I think we've got everything adjusted, and we're ready to add the relationships or the links between the different items. So over here on the menu bar, we're going to go over to the item called links. We're going to click on links. We're going to change it to the band. And this is important. If you just draw a line, it will only draw a single line between each of the data bars. And that's not what we want. We actually want a band of information being portrayed between them. And here's the cool part. Now that we've added those link items, the link data categories, and again, I think it's source underscore ID and target underscore ID is really what's doing the linking here. I think it's physically the name of the column that's determining how the links work. I'll have to confirm that, but we're going to then link by data. We're going to hit create links, and now we've got this array of links across the entire page. So we've got these data bars that are drawing this. Now another thing you'll notice here is if I zoom in on one of these areas, all of these little bars that we're looking at here across the scale of this output, they're all in equal size. They're all the width of 1. That's not really what we want. We actually want the width of those bars to adjust. So I'm going to zoom out. And instead, we're going to take the width of the bar, and I think we want to make it the width of the amount. I did it to color. That's not what I wanted. I want the width of the bar to be amount. So now countries that get more trade have a thicker bar than countries that get less trade. That works. Now you also notice these lines aren't very curvy. Some of them are kind of straight and some of them are kind of curvy. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the type of this to an arc. So now everything kind of gets this nice smooth curve to it. And this is kind of what Microsoft was drawing when they drew theirs. So now we've got all the different bars and the trade regions. And then the next thing we'll see here is there's a very little gap between some of these regions here. So if we click in the chart, there's a little blue mark here. And so what this is doing, this is the gap between things. So if I go down here to the gap area, it's set at 10%. We're going to increase that gap up a little bit. Let's go to 23. Maybe a bit more, 30. Let's try 30. So 30% is my gap between the data bars. So it just adds a little bit more distinction between all the data elements that we're having on those data points. Okay. Next, we've made a majority of this. Let me just check my notes here. Okay. So I think we've done everything that we can do. The next thing we probably want to do is add a legend to this. So I think we want a legend on the shape, and it's coloring by the first region. So I'm going to add a legend here. There's my legend. I'm going to grab the anchor point and move it over here to the left-hand side so we can read the words and it's not on top of our chart. So this is a good starting point, but with a lot of this information, we have different countries now representing a region. So we need to now add additional details to one of these bars to tell us what region we're talking about here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to the glyph and see if I can zoom in. There's my glyph. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move to the top of the glyph, and we will drag the text box over here in the middle on the top of the words. So here now we have a text box at the end of each data bar. So I'm going to move that up to the top here. We'll probably rotate it 90 degrees, adjust it a bit more. Okay, so now I've got some text there on the end. And this text should now officially be the name of the country. There we go. So we can see, and this makes sense, right? Some of the countries that are large importers or exporters of natural goods, there's China, there's United States, there's Mexico and Canada. So those are some of like our big trade countries. Germany is pretty big. Japan's a pretty big exporter, importer. Korea, another one. So you can kind of see who's doing the largest amount of trade there. Okay. So we can, that looks good. Next thing we probably want to do is we want to add colors to each of the words to kind of help us, again, build some more distinction here. Again, this is a refining touch here. So we're going to take the region and add it to the color area for each of the words. So now the words also match the different countries. And we're kind of scrunched here at the top on this top part. So what I might do is I might shrink the text a little bit to see if that works any better. And I think we're there. I think we've kind of made the chart. Now, I have found problems. So this is, when you zoom out, this Charticulator lets you zoom in and zoom out on things. So that makes it very, very helpful here. So I'm going to try to adjust the scale of some of these options here. Let's go with the top at 75. That looks okay. The bottom at probably 75. And we can probably stretch out the sides a little bit. So the left, let's go all the way back to 0. Okay, that might work. I kind of would like the chart to be over-centered, off-centered a little bit because it's got a little bit too much white space on that right-hand side. So I might, on the left-hand side, add like 30. Yeah, let's go up to 50. Let's go back to 50. Okay, I think this is going to work. The next thing we can do is we can click on the plot segment, and then we can change the ordering of what's going on here. So right now, I believe it's default ordering, but we could order it by region, which I think is what it's doing right now. We can go in inverse order by region, or we can also order by totals. So we could see which countries are doing the largest amount. I don't think that's as appealing because the colors are now jumping between different colors. I think it's actually more appealing to go by region. So we're going to click on region and then sort by region. So each region is grouped together. Now, which way looks better? I don't think it really matters at this point. I think it looks about the same. Okay, I think we've made it. The only other thing, so this is the tutorial that we're following along here, and this will be in the description. This is the global trade of natural resources in 2016. This is how the chart looks, and if you put ours side by side, we're pretty dang close. Oh, one thing I would say I think I missed here is I didn't add the coloring for the different bands that are going on here. So let's go and add that. See if we can add the color for that. So we're going to click on the link segment, and then on the region in the linking values, we're going to go down here and we're going to change the color from none to be by region. Ah, here we go. That's what we needed. So now the data, the bars coming out of each country are also coloring by each country's color or region's color. So now we can see trade by region. And again, my colors are off because I'm using standard Power BI colors, but now we can see, yeah, this looks exactly the same. We got the same kind of effect looking up here. Now, the only thing we have left that we're missing is we don't have the dark background. So let's add that last step here, and we can make this chart look exactly like it is in the tutorial. So next what we'll do is we'll go back to the chart area. So I'm not highlighting anything right now. The color is now nothing, and it doesn't really let you pick a color from a color palette, but I do know the color to get black, you use a hex symbol, hash or pound, I guess it'll be pound symbol, and then you just do 1, 2, 3 zeros, and that turns everything black. Oops. And in doing this, our legend lettering is black, so we just lost our legend text. So we're going to go back to the legend, and we're going to change the color to now be white. And now we get our countries back. There we go. So hit save on this. Oh, this went surprisingly well. I didn't have any crashes or anything on this one. So I did this a couple times beforehand, and I got some weird results a couple times. So it's seeming like it works fine. So save, go back to the report. There's our chart. We now have an embedded chart. And this is actually a good example here. As let's make this, I'm actually going to adjust the page size here. Some of the lettering here across some of these smaller countries are very scrunched up. So this is a visual that needs a lot of space to properly show its true value to you. So what I'll do then is I'm going to go to the visualizations area, click on the format options, which is the paint roller here. We're going to click on format. Clicking on format, we go down to the page size, and then we're going to change this to custom. And then I'm just going to make it a full square. So it's 1280 by 1280. Now we have a much bigger canvas. I'm going to move our Charticulator app down to the bottom right-hand side. Let's move our two tables up to the top here because we don't technically need them right now. We just wanted to use them to show what the data was doing. Bada boom. Let's unselect that so it comes back. Okay. And then if I grow the chart, yeah, you can see that now we've got a nice rich chart. Ta-da! And then lastly, I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the page view to be the actual size. And there we go. Sweet chart. So this is exactly the tutorial that Microsoft gives you for the global trade of natural resources. There's actually a video that goes along with this. So if you scroll down in the tutorial, there's a video that you can play. There is no narration or no audio on it, so I kind of don't like that. But I like going through these myself, and this is a good exercise to get going. So this is the step-by-step tutorial on the global trade by countries. Let's do a final thing here. Let's name this episode 8. And there we go. Hey, if you like this content from Power BI Tips, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be doing more of these things. Please comment in the comments. I'm using the comments to help me build my next chart. So if you have a type of chart that you're interested in, something you want to learn how to do, make sure you make a note in the comments, and I'll try to address it and maybe put it on a future video. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you again soon.